they're digging, simultaneously they'd have 3 excavators working to dig this hole, which is pretty awesome sight to see, in one little 100-foot long hole in Ronaville Road. Another item I'd like to highlight here in the upper right are the utilities that I had mentioned. The contractor is being asked to do this project while having an active 8-inch water main and 6-inch sanitary sewer main running right through the middle of the site. So, it's something they're constantly having to readjust and work around. And, it's very important for us to keep those services going to our citizens during that time. And it's presenting interesting challenge. The contractor is working really well with that. So moving from June into July, this month was really focused on completing the channel work, which, as you can see a little bit of the picture on the left there, that is a bit of the downstream area where some of the channel reconstruction has occurred. And then nearing the end of July, we started to receive shipments of the precast concrete box culvert, which you can see over here on the right. This is actually the first piece being placed sometime in and around late July. The concrete box culvert is modular, so it comes in bottom pieces and top pieces that fit together kind of like Legos. Each piece is 4 feet long, and they just continually move up the channel piece by piece. And because there's tops and bottoms, they're also allowed to build the channel without the tops being put on, which is pretty neat. And I think there's a photo right after this that'll kind of do the process justice as to what our vision was in building this project, but also what it's like actually being implemented. Another quick opportunity here to show scale. This hole right here from which that man is standing right there, and I'm taking this picture, is about 40 feet deep in the roadway there. And the top of the slope on either side is about 100 feet wide. So it's a pretty massive hole that is hard to really fathom until you see it. Another little note here in the top right, you'll see this little yellow circle. That's a 6-foot-tall man at the top of that hole, and he looks pretty small. So it's it's pretty big and it's pretty impressive. So moving into August here, the primary focus of this month, or this last month I should say, has been installing as much culvert and channel as possible and starting to backfill around the pipe along the way. These photos, especially the one on the right, you'll kind of get a sense of how they've been building it. They've been laying bottom pieces down and building channel within the pipe, then laying top pieces on top of it and filling as they go so they can keep moving up the channel. To this point, they've installed, I believe, about 80% of the pipe in this fashion, and things are going quite well and smooth, all things considered. So in the first few months, we have faced a couple of challenges here that we've certainly had to work through, and things that we weren't necessarily initially planning for, but all projects have bumps in the road, and this project is no different. One of the things we've really been battling is, for how large of a project this is, it's really quite a small project site. The whole project site itself, I don't think is quite an acre, or if it is, it's probably just barely that. And there's a lot of machinery and things being stored on the site and active utilities moving through the site. And it certainly has created a challenge in how you phase and how you go about doing a project of this magnitude with realistically a fairly small crew, just because that's all you can have working at any given time. Another interesting challenge has been material availability. We had been planning to install the culvert in July, not August, and do a couple of other things, but due to COVID and supply chains and a number of other extenuating circumstances, we've had to adapt and change the phasing of the project, which has been an interesting challenge. But I think we all kind of rose to the occasion and lost a pretty minimal amount of time in doing so. And then lastly, I'll just note, as with any construction project, we've had a little bit of scope creep. As you dig a 40-foot hole in a very historic road, you find utilities and other little things that you now find yourself dealing with that we didn't necessarily know there were before. So there's some additional little items of work and challenges that we seem to be facing on a weekly or bi-weekly basis for sure. But while the hole is there, you got to kind of fix everything you could find. So with that, I guess I'll talk about the remaining work as we head towards the finish line here. Through the rest of September this month, we are hoping that we'll get the contractor to finish up installing the box culvert and building the channel from beside the box culvert and finish the upstream head wall concrete structure. By the end of the month, we're hoping that they're starting to really substantially backfill the road and they can start reestablishing some of those utilities we saw that had been routed earlier, mainly water and gas. Moving into early October, we're anticipating they'll finish backfilling the road, finish reestablishing all of our utilities, and then they can start paving and sidewalk striping, the final restoration work that'll lead into a road opening. So we're currently looking at somewhere probably around the week of October 19th is our best guess. And I say guess, but it's, you know, something we think very thoughtfully and clearly about on a weekly basis with our contractor and with our engineers. And right now we feel confident that we can push hard, the whole team, and hit that. And I do have one additional little video here that's, again, kind of fun to get the scale, to see a semi-end dumping aggregate base into a hole, and it looks rather like somebody's pouring a bowl of cereal into a hot tub. It's a lot of material, and it doesn't look like a lot once you're working in something of this size. So I promised a few little nonsense fun facts here. I get to talk about this project a lot, and I talk about this project a lot with folks who don't necessarily see the scale of it or are able to come out, and I try and think of ways where I can equate the size of this project to things we all know. So as far as the excavation coming out of this hole, there's in total about 10,000 cubic yards of material coming out, which ultimately means there's about 1,300 dump trucks that have left this project site with dirt in them. Keep in mind that we have to fill this hole again, so ultimately it's somewhere around the order of 2,500 dump trucks coming in and out of this site to complete this project, which is pretty crazy. Moving on to the amount of rock that's been put in this channel to reconstruct it. In total, we bid about 2,000 tons of rock, which is kind of a hard number to grasp, but that's about 4 million pounds, or for those of us that like to think in the size of full-size pickup trucks, about 550 Ram 2500 pickup trucks. And lastly, the amount of concrete that's in this pipe that's going in the ground and in the head wall and end walls is about 465 cubic yards of concrete, which is equivalent to the amount of concrete it would take to make about 1.5 miles of 5-foot wide sidewalk. So again, it's a small footprint, but a pretty large and a pretty awesome project. And I just really feel lucky that we're able to undertake this project at this time. So with that, that's my quick update on the project, where it's been and where it's going, I suppose. And I'd just like to thank everybody for your time, and also thank the residents of Fortuna and the users of Ronerville Road. We certainly recognize that, you know, this is nothing if not an inconvenience for many folks, and having the road down is certainly difficult for everybody. But at the same time, we do feel lucky and fortunate to be able to undertake this project, and that the state was willing to invest in such a large project for our little city, and something that we really needed an improvement in this piece of infrastructure. So we are very grateful for that. And with that, I'll say thank you again and answer any questions if anybody has them.
Great presentation, Brendan. Does anyone have any questions?
Go ahead, Tammy. Go ahead. Ladies first.
I actually got to take a tour of this. Brendan gave me a tour of this, and it's way bigger than it even looks on the video here. It was very, very impressive. He gave a great tour, and I'd recommend any of you to go take it. It really puts in perspective what they're doing and why it's taking so long. So thank you again, Brendan, for showing me that.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Dean?
Thanks, Sue. My question was, removing the soil, are we going to benefit from reusing it again, or are we required by the grant to have to use new soil that meets whatever specs?
We're doing somewhat of a combination. In the lower areas around the pipe, we're bringing in aggregate base or road base just for structural purposes, but about 2/3 of the dirt that came out, if not a little bit more than that, will be going back in the hole. It's suitable material. So we're getting some new material in there, and the contractor will be off hauling some of the existing stuff, but we'll be able to reuse most of it.
Great. Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to thank Brendan and for a tour that he gave me today, and it is impressive. If you get a chance to go out and see it, it's like Tammy said, it's bigger than it looks in the pictures. And it's a darn good piece of engineering. And I think that the folks that are doing the project seem to be doing a very good job of, in the parameters they have and the scheduling and COVID, in keeping up with the schedule and doing things on time and doing it well.
Speaking of the schedule, aren't we about 6 weeks behind what we had anticipated in the beginning? Wasn't it supposed to be the end of August?
We're certainly a little bit, I guess, behind. I'll say as a relative term. I think that all of us, including our staff, as well as our engineering staff, our consultants, were a little bit probably optimistic in what was realistic. And I think that in reality, our team, including the contractor, is working quite as fast as we really can to implement the project. And it was probably unrealistic to think that we were going to get it completed in the timeline that we had originally set out to do.
Well, I'm glad you gave us an update, because I've been telling people into September, and so now I can correct that.
Certainly.
And Mayor
Actually,
Long, in the long term, one of the things about this project, it's great we could bring some restoration money to fix a culvert that was creating a problem for the city. We did have an emergency closure and had to shut Ronerville Road down. And so with this project, we'll get to avoid the emergency that happens in the future. So we like to think of this as a short delay compared to what could happen if it blew out in the middle of the winter time.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, thank you, Brendan. Great presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Moving on to oral comments from the public. If you are watching on the screen, there will be a Zoom number that you can join our meeting, or a phone number, and you can call in with any comments that you would like to make to the council. We'll pause for a few seconds and see if we get any phone calls. If we move on before you've had a chance to call, Sienna will let us know and we'll come back to you. So don't panic if it doesn't go smoothly. All right, we'll move on to the consent calendar. And if anyone calls in, Sienna, just please let us know.
I will.
We have 4 items on the consent calendar, including city council minutes from August 17th, report of disbursements, approve updated Title VI program for the Fortuna Transit Division, Resolution 2020-30, and continuation of COVID-19 emergency proclamation. Does anyone wish to pull anything?
I'd like to pull item number 2.
Anyone else? All right, Dean, what's your question or comment?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I can't give you the specific page that would show up on the little laptops, but I could just make reference to something has been outstanding for months. And I had approached the city manager about this last year when our centennial clock decided to stop working. Delightful as it is, it was repaired. And I'd like to thank Bartow's Jewelers for finding the venue that would be able to make that happen. And hopefully there was money left over in the Centennial Celebration Fund that the city had when we were going through purchasing that clock and doing other things in the city. So anyway, it's great to see it working. So now if people are in town, they can't say they don't know what time it is.
All right. Anyone else, or do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Sienna?
Councilmember Glauser,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Stanfield,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Trent,
Yes.
Mayor Long.
Yes, thank you. Next up, we have our city manager's report. Merritt?
Thank you, Mayor Long. So I just have a few items to review, starting off with the upcoming meeting schedule. Our next regular council meeting will be on September 21st, and currently that's planned to be a teleconference. Our next planning commission is on September 22nd at 6 p.m., also by teleconference. Our next Measure E meeting will be on September 15th at 5:30 p.m. That'll also be a teleconference. Measure E topic will be of interest to some. It'll be reviewing last year's financials and what the money from Measure E was spent on. And the next Broner Community Recreation and Park District meeting is on October 7th at 2:30 p.m. So all these meetings will continue to be planned via the Zoom platform as they have been for the last few months. With regard to my verbal report, there's a number of things that have come up. One of them that I've been looking into, there's been some inquiries from the public about the California redemption value buyback. And I had some inquiries from council members too, and people who really want to see the buyback facility open back up. I did speak with Linda Wise, the general manager for Recology, and they are actually looking to shut down their CRV buyback. I did call the state, Cal Recycle oversees this, and they said that Recology does not have an obligation to keep the CRV buyback going. Recology's primary concerns were the concerns for citizen contact with coronavirus, potential some environmental with spillage of some of the vessels, but it's not something that they wanted to continue. So my hope is we can discuss this as a part of the franchise agreement negotiations when the city renegotiates the franchise agreement, which currently ends at the end of this fiscal year. So I think the council may have seen that there was long lines in Eureka when they did open that up. So I guess I want the public to recognize that the city understands that this is a priority for residents. People don't want to keep their recyclables at home for a long period of time, and that they're entitled to that buyback. So we will continue to look at this issue. We've also received a number of questions about work that's happening on below Hilltop Drive, and some concerns from property owners there. And I just wanted to let the council know that Danco Construction is completing this work. It's being done under the oversight of a registered professional engineer that's capable of doing that work, and the city is checking in and overseeing. We're overseeing that with our engineering department staff and monitoring the work for conformance with those engineered plans. So they are working on that, and they are planning to continue to finish that project this summer, or this dry season, this construction season. I also wanted to just say that we received a really nice letter from the Fortuna Cemetery District. They were having some of their roads at the Sunrise Cemetery deteriorate. They reached out to me, and I asked Kevin Carter to meet with them. He did, and he was able to add them onto our slurry seal project, and they just really appreciated the help. Road maintenance is not something that the cemetery district does all the time. So Kevin Carter and Bob Nat were able to do a really good job and to help the cemetery district, and they sent a really nice letter thanking them today. So I just wanted to let the council know that, we also help the cemetery district and sometimes get out of our direct city responsibilities, but I was pleased we were able to help them with our expertise in this instance. And then the council may have noticed there was quite a bit of activity on Ronerville Road. We're doing a inspection and likely an abatement warrant over the next few weeks for a property that the council has been looking at for some time, and trying to get the property owner to do the abatement work themselves, but that hasn't been happening. So that property owner, there was an inspection out at that property, and there will be ongoing activities out there over the next few weeks. Also, I've been talking with the Rancho Buena Vista Homeowners Association and other residents of that neighborhood. There's a pedestrian easement that goes between Sunrise Court and Nelson Drive, and there's been some disagreements about use. The city has a non-vehicular easement there, and there's been some motorcycles and other things riding there. So I'm trying to work with those homeowners to figure out a suitable solution. We have put some bollards in to stop the motor vehicle use, and some of the residents would like to see those removed and have it open. And so I will be working with them and following up with them on Thursday, and we'll try to come up with a solution that works for everybody there. Our finance director submitted our invoice to the state for the CARES Act distribution. It was approximately $150,000. To date, we've received about $50,000 of those funds. And we expect to receive another $100,000 in October. So that's really good news for the budget. Our finance director could elaborate more, but we had expenses that were attributable to that, including some of our police time and other things that So that's $150,000 that we're pleased to be adding to the city budget. And then some other good news from our finance director was that for the fourth quarter of last fiscal year, April to June, we didn't actually see a decrease in our sales tax. So the numbers were better than expected. And so we're a little bit optimistic about what we're seeing. As you know, in our budget, we projected a pretty significant decrease. And so we have a conservative budget, and it's our hope that, things will turn out better. We don't know about this year yet, but at least the last quarter came in better than expected. So that concludes my staff report. I'd be happy to answer any questions if the council has them.
Thank you, Merritt. Does anyone have any questions? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to future agenda items. Anyone?
Well, Madam Mayor, I don't have a subject to put on the agenda, but I could either talk about it now or talk about it when I'm doing my council comments. So I'd rather talk about it now. I think it's time for us to have our live meetings in our council chambers. And I hope there's enough of the council members to have a quorum in the idea. And we can, staff is, I've talked to them, they are willing to be able to set it up so that we can comply with Dr. Frankovich's mandates. And there are face masks that are not completely encasing of the face. One in reflection was Dr. Chief's Day's wife had a plastic one that she was wearing, and something like that I think would be compliant as well. So I would like to have our council meetings go back to the chambers as they've been in the past before this medical crisis impacted us negatively. And I hope that there's enough support amongst all of us as elected officials to try to get it back the way it used to be.
All right, thank you, Dean. It's not on our agenda, so we can't really discuss it at this point. If you want to have it actually added to our agenda, we can direct staff to do so.
Well, I would say, and I have to have somebody second it, but we need to make every effort possible to get back the way the things used to be. This is, doing the Zoom is just not a happy camper time for any of us, let alone the staff. So anyway, I'm throwing it out there.
Does anyone want to see this added to the next agenda to talk about?
Yes.
All right. Tiana, if you would make a note of that for us, please. Thank you. City Council reports and comments. Dean, you're up again.
Wow, what a coincidence. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. For Redwood Coast Energy Authority, nothing to report. I'm not sure whether you notice it, but I notice it. I'm wearing my 9/11/2001 shirt to remember what happened 19 years ago, and it's going to be the 19th anniversary on this Friday, 9/11. Last year I made a mention about this, and I made an effort to try to have the public remember the immensity of the negative effect it had on our culture and our country, and to have 3,000 people die under those circumstances. The people that responded, the first responders, the policemen, the firemen, the EMTs, everybody trying to make an effort to recover bodies in the rubble. Those individuals, many of those people have died from respiratory and pulmonary diseases that were brought on by their exposure. And it continues to happen. So it's not just 3,000 people, it could be 5,000, 6,000, 7,000. So what I ask the public to do, if you can, before you have your cup of coffee on Friday morning, just take a couple of minutes to stand with your head bowed down and reflect upon the fact that it wasn't one of your family members that passed away from that horrible event. It wasn't your uncle or your father or your brother. That we were very fortunate to be forgiven of having somebody that we know very close pass away. And we need to always never forget this. We need to remember that this is something that happened to us. We let our guard down, and we never want to have it happen again. So that I want everybody to imprint in their head to remember. Our country is going through a great deal of strife. 19 years ago, you could not find a flag the very next day. They were all purchased. They were all sold out. People flew those things in honor of their country. And today we have anarchist groups that are destroying flags, burning flags, doing everything the opposite what happened to our country 19 years ago. And that has to stop. However we manage to do that, there needs to be a complete deterrent placed in front of them to have our country come back to being unified rather than non-unified. So with that, I will add my final statement that I always do for council comments. God bless America. God bless our troops. God bless all those people that have been sharing the hardship that we are all going through today with this medical issue. And we hope and pray that it ends sooner than later. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Mike.
Well, we had a HCOG executive board meeting to begin the process of replacing the retiring executive director. We are hoping to have that job advertised and out by the end of September at the latest. Also, in keeping with what Merritt reported, I did get a report that our highway user tax and gas tax receipts for the county portion, not for each individual city, but the entire portion that would come to the county and then was higher than it was last time. So maybe things won't be quite as dire as we thought, but we will find out in November, I guess. We have a historical commission meeting tomorrow and looking forward to that. And in keeping with what Dean said, if we can abide by the county health officer's requests and mandates and have a meeting in person, I believe it would be better for all of us. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm getting a little stir crazy. I'm getting too acquainted with the computer. And I don't feel like we can do as effective a job as we do when we meet live and can discuss things better. So I would look forward to that, and hopefully we can pull that one off. And I will proudly be flying my flag this coming Friday in remembrance of 9/11 and the people that lost their lives and the tragedy that whole thing was. And not just in one location, but in 3 locations, and a direct attack on our capital. So I follow Dean, and God bless our country and our troops and those who place themselves in harm's way, whether right here in Fortuna in the medical and law enforcement field or overseas defending our democracy. And I'll turn that over to Jeremy now.
Thank you, Mike. Jeremy? Jeremy, you're muted.
Got it. You love technology till you don't love technology. Thank you. As far as city business goes, Fortuna Business Improvement District has not met since last time we got together. And your staff report, or excuse me, the consent agenda from the previous meeting has comments from our Parks and Recreation Director, Cameron, but if he'd like to chime in on any specific topics, otherwise we discussed a lot about uses for the grants that we received for each, the city of Fortuna and for Ronaville Recreation District. And we also allocated funds towards parklands acquisition. Is that accurate, Cameron?
Yes, it is. Yep. So we've got a lot going on as far as grants go for park expansion and development, both as Jeremy mentioned with the city and the Rona Rec District. So just wanted to mention again to the public at least that we've got some Proposition 68 grants coming our way. We've got the final round of the statewide park development grant, otherwise known as the SPP grant. We'll be submitting that by December 14th for a Newburgh Park acquisition and development project. The Rona Rec District has recently decided that they would like to pursue the same grant for the development or the construction of an aquatic facility. So those are both going on, and I'll be spending a lot of staff time on both of those. And then we have our per capita funds that both the Rona Rec District and the city will be receiving in the amount of $177,000 and change each for each entity. And we have yet to identify what project that we'd like to use those funds for. Turns out the grant application for that won't be until next winter, 2021. So we have a little bit of time to determine what we want to do with those funds. And we'll kind of wait to see what happens with those big competitive SPP grants before we determine what we'll do with those funds. So yeah, a lot of positive grant projects going on. At the least, we'll have, 177,000 and change, and hopefully be able to partner with the Rona Rec District on a more significant project.
Thanks, Cameron.
Yep.
And last Friday, I attended the virtual division meetings for League of California Cities. And then also wanted to say that I'm really sorry to see how many people are evacuated from nearby Ruth and areas, and all the people affected by this. Just seems like coming out. Thank our firefighters and all of our first responders for going out and available and going out on these special strikes and being away from their families. So thank you all for what you do to Fortuna great.
Thank you, Jeremy. Tammy?
We had a mission on hydrogen versus electric buses. By the year 2023, 25% of the buses we purchase have to be electric. And by 2050, have to be electric. And by 2013, we'll be no longer able to buy a bus. All the buses purchased will have to be electric. So it's starting to lay the groundwork for the change now. And I had on here, I wanted to thank Brendan for the tour, which I already did that. And I want to let everybody will an absentee ballot. All the ballots will be the same. There won't be a separate mail-in as there is absentee. Everybody received this in the mail, and on the back of this right here, it has how to track your ballot. So you can actually track it, find out when it gets and when it's not. It gives you a little bit of assurance that they did get your ballot and your vote does count. And also, I wanted to say, pay attention to Proposition 20 on the ballot. That's one that the committee that I sit on for the League of California Cities, the Public Safety Committee, we've been working on this one for a couple of years. This one reverses some of the crimes that they changed in 47 and 57 from violent to non-violent. It puts them back to violent, which what that does is it prevents the criminals from early parole. Some of those crimes that they changed to nonviolent were things such as child sex trafficking, rape on an unconscious person, you know, crimes that are definitely violent crimes. So those people will no longer be able to get early parole. There are more crimes books, serial theft, and organized theft. So police will actually have something to criminals with, so they can steal $150 a day and get a ticket. There'll be felonies and punishable by jail time. So hopefully that will cut down on some of the shoplifting. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Tammy. So most of us attended the virtual League of California Cities meeting last Friday. It's not quite the same on a screen, but at least we got to kind of check in with all of the other cities. I have an executive REDAC meeting on the 17th. I got asked to serve on the HSU Presidential Community Advisory Committee. So I'm going to do that for the next couple of years, just to kind of keep up to date with what Humboldt State is doing. And it's just a quarterly meeting, so it's not too overwhelming for time. We did get a little Measure G committee together and had a meeting last week, and we're working on our flyers, and hopefully we'll be able to get those ready and start walking this weekend, and get our press release out. And so anyway, we're pulling that together probably a little bit later than I had wanted, but at least we are making some progress on that now. And Measure G, in case you don't know, is the extension of Measure E, which has been able to provide extra police, extra parks, extra streets, storm drain, all kinds of things. And I've got the brochure started with the bullet points of what we've been able to accomplish so far. So if anyone has any suggestions, please let me know. Mike was on the committee and myself, so that's our 2 council members that we can have. And then we do have the blessing of the Humboldt County Taxpayers Association, which is good. I think I have 6 people signed up to walk certain areas of the city so far. So we're getting there. So you'll be hearing more about that. And I'll be working with probably Merritt to make sure we're not forgetting anything, or if he has any suggestions, because he always has good ideas on wording. And I did steal some wording out of one of our Measure E reports that I think Aaron wrote. So Aaron contributed without him knowing it. So I think that's all I have to report. We do have 2 closed session items. We have a conference with real property negotiator pursuant to section 54956.8 of the government code, vacant land along Eel River and 1320 Riverwalk Drive. Negotiating party to the city manager, Merritt Perry, for the city of Fortuna, and Troy Land as negotiating party. Under negotiation is the price and terms of payment. The second item is conference with real property negotiator pursuant to section 54956.8 of the government code, property located at 320 Main Street. The negotiating parties are the city manager, Merritt Perry, for the city of Fortuna, and Debbie Chisholm as negotiating party. Under negotiation is price and terms of sale. We will pause for a couple seconds here if anyone wants to call in. Sienna can put the instructions on the screen. If anyone has any comments on these items before we go to closed session, please call in now and let us know. All right, not hearing any phone calls or getting any signals from Sienna, we will move to adjourn to closed session. Somebody want to
Madam
make?
Mayor, can I say something before we adjourn?
Yes.
On October 5th, the Fortuna Chamber of Commerce is holding a candidate forum, and it will be a Zoom meeting, a virtual forum. You must register to not participate, but to view. And there will be a Q&A section, so I guess viewers can participate. But you register at fortunachamber.com. October 5th at noon will be the forum. So hopefully we haven't lost all our viewers yet, but we can bring it up again at the next meeting.
Okay, thanks, Mike, for that reminder. Do we have a motion to adjourn to closed session?
I'll make a motion to adjourn to closed session.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Sienna, do your thing for us, please.
Got it.
Thank you.